Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. We are 48 hours in to the Jon Sumrall era down there at Florida. And I got some takes. I also have some question marks, but I want to start with this. I thought Jon Sumrall smashed that press conference yesterday. And I think in the most important fashion, it wasn't what he said. It was how he was saying it. We're trying to find the differences between Billy Napier and Jon Sumrall because we all see it in the comment section and we see it on Twitter and on the message boards. There's a large segment of the Florida fans that view Jon Sumrall as Billy Napier 2.0. And I don't necessarily blame those Florida fans for thinking that. Go listen to that 50-minute press conference. If you're trying to find some differences, the differences were very clear. I mean, go back to the Billy Napier era for a sec. Robotic at times. I would maybe describe him as stiff. Actually, here's the word that I would use. A feeling of apathy at times. Like it almost didn't feel like Billy Napier cared. Now, we knew Billy Napier cared, but he wouldn't necessarily show it. It was kind of a weird fit because the Florida fans going to wear their emotions on their sleeve. That's what Jon Sumrall is. Jon Sumrall is a killer, man, and he is going to wear his emotions on his sleeve. And there are not many coaches who are more competitive than Jon Sumrall. You felt that in that introductory press conference that we saw yesterday afternoon. The other thing that I'll say that really does intrigue me and quite frankly excites me, there's some quiet confidence about player retention. And Jon Sumrall talked about that in his press conference as well. He views player retention as maybe the most crucial element of roster building in the sport. Everybody wants to talk about new players coming into a program. Jon Sumrall says, hey, keeping the good players on your roster, it's more important, right? And it was something that Jon Sumrall really never had the opportunity to do at Tulane. Like Tulane had some really good football players, and guess what? When they're really good at Tulane, they're taking some money to go elsewhere next year. You're not going to have that problem at Florida. You can tell Jon Sumrall cares about retaining the talent on this roster. And the quiet feedback we are getting is Florida feels pretty good about some of this young talent staying on its roster going into 2026. I'm talking about Vernell Brown, Dallas Wilson, Jaden Baugh, Miles Graham, Jaden Woods. It's one of the most important first steps for whoever was going to be the next head coach. Can you retain that young nucleus of talent? Because if you can, you got an immediate chance to win in 2026. And we're hearing all the right things coming out of Gainesville, Florida in that perspective as well. A really positive start in the first. It was a rocky first 5 hours because I was on the message boards and I saw many Florida fans in the comment section. And I know for a fact Florida fans were, and I think rightfully so, skeptical of this hire. Jon Sumrall is quickly winning over some of this fan base, right? And I think that was important, right? You have to have the fan base pulling in the same direction as the head coach. I want to get into the next most important question. We talked about the offensive coordinators and the coaching staff that Jon Sumrall is going to bring. Early names that we got at the OC from, we talked about it yesterday. I like it, specifically Buster Faulkner. Yeah, it feels good to have a head coach that's going to take a big swing when it comes to hiring an offensive coordinator and hiring an offensive play caller, right? Because that's something we didn't get with Billy Napier. The next most important conversation, not only who's going to be your OC, hey, who's going to be the quarterback of this offense in 2026. Now, I think you're going to get the offensive coordinator hire first, and then you start evaluating quarterback options. I want to get into an early conversation. Before we do, and as always, to the Florida fans, this is what I'm most intrigued about from a Florida fan perspective. DJ Lagway. That's where we're going to start, right? Because he's your quarterback one currently on your roster. There are a couple of options elsewhere that you could get in the portal that I think would make a lot of sense. But I kind of want to get a vibe on the confidence that the Florida fans have with DJ Lagway potentially being the quarterback in 2026. And I think I'm going to get a split decision, but I'm kind of interested to hear in the comment section. Appreciate you guys. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. We're going to have a lot to talk about over the next couple of weeks and months. A lot of portal commitments to break down as well. Without further ado, let's get into this conversation. Who will be quarterback one? Now, we know Jon Sumrall is the kind of coach that he's going to try to make a really, really good offensive coordinator hire, and he's going to lean on his offensive coordinator to make this decision. Jon Sumrall is not a head coach that is going to meddle a lot in things that he shouldn't meddle in, right? And that's kind of the opposite of Billy Napier, right? Billy Napier consistently wanted to call plays when it was pretty damn clear he shouldn't have. Jon Sumrall is not going to take a passive approach as a head coach, but he's going to lean on the guys that he brought in to make some important decisions too. And I think who's going to be quarterback one is going to be one of them. What's the argument for DJ Lagway? There's really two ways of looking at this, right? Number one is maybe he's just broken, right? Because it was really bad in 2025. The mechanics were bad. The footwork was bad. The consistency in terms of accuracy was bad. The decision-making was bad. There was not a lot of redeeming play that you saw from DJ Lagway in 2025. And maybe the assumption is, hey, it's time to move on, right? We don't think we can fix it. The other side of the equation is we know how talented this kid is because we had not forgotten what we saw back in 2024 when he was a true freshman. The offensive coordinator has a decision to make. One, can I fix him? Because if you feel like you can fix DJ Lagway, if you feel like you can get him healthy, you can get him all the way through winter, all the way through spring practice healthy, then carry that over to fall camp and keep him healthy for the full offseason and fix some of the problems. You got one of the best quarterbacks in the country, right? We'll see what Florida decides to do. I'm very interested to hear from the Florida fans. I don't really have a strong opinion, right? I would trust the offensive coordinator that's coming in to make this. If you feel like he's just broken beyond repair, then you have to move on. And if you move on, look, there's going to be a lot of money that can be allocated to your quarterback one in 2026 because we know damn well there's a lot of money going to DJ Lagway right now. If DJ Lagway's playing his football elsewhere, you're going to have the funds to make a splash in the transfer portal when it comes to a quarterback. We'll see what they do. I have a slight lean, and maybe this is misguided. Maybe this is not being patient enough. I don't know if I go with him in 2026. It seemed so broken in terms of his decision making and the fundamentals and the mechanics. I think it's hard to have a season like that and come back from it, right? You've kind of similar vibes to what Jackson Arnold was. Jackson Arnold showed some promise as a freshman, then in year two just looked like a disaster at Oklahoma. Auburn tries to fix him, didn't work, right? You have to repair his not only like what he is as a quarterback, but also what's between the ears because the confidence is certainly not there with DJ Lagway either. We'll see what Florida decides to do. Now, if you wanted to go to the portal, there's a couple intriguing names, and I think most notably, and I think this kid's a stud, Darian Mensah. Darian Mensah was Jon Sumrall's quarterback at Tulane in 2024. And of course, he balls out at Tulane. And then Duke throws a ton of money at Darian Mensah to come up to North Carolina. Darian Mensah is single-handedly taking Duke to the ACC championship. This Duke team is not very good. They've lost some games out of conference. Darian Mensah has been elite 67% completion percentage, 3,400 yards, 28 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, an average depth of target of 9.6 yards down the field. With a 67% completion percentage, that is freaky good. I mean, he is pushing the ball down the field, but also completing a lot of his passes. Go back to DJ Lagway last year. DJ Lagway's ADOT was 11 yards down the field, but it was a 57% completion percentage. Darian Mensah has been awesome for Duke, right? And now Florida's in a position, Jon Sumrall, I should say, is in a position where we can go blow for blow with Duke. If we want to go grab Darian Mensah back and put him at Florida, you can go do that in ways that you could not do that at Tulane, right? This one would make a lot of sense. Again, what intrigues me the most is he was really good at Tulane as a redshirt freshman. Then he goes to the ACC, and I get the ACC is not great this year. That is a bottom tier roster in the ACC, but they have one of the best quarterbacks in the conference, and they're winning football games. What does Darian Mensah look like at Florida? This would be my option if I'm Jon Sumrall. And there's that familiarity there. Like Jon Sumrall knows how this kid carries himself. He knows how this kid leads. And if Jon Sumrall wants Darian Mensah back, I am all aboard the Darian Mensah quarterback one for Florida in 2026. There's another name that intrigues me, Florida kid, CJ Bailey from South Florida, down there close to Miami. And NC State just They don't seem like a very inspiring program. And I know they're going to keep Dave Dorn for one more year, but I think CJ Bailey going into year 3, probably looking for an opportunity to take a step. You look at CJ Bailey's number: 69% completion percentage, 2,800 yards, 23 touchdowns, 9 interceptions, a 50% completion percentage, throwing the football 20 plus yards down the field. What excites me the most about CJ Bailey is, look, I think we're getting a really good quarterback, right? I think there's a lot of meat left on the bone. This kid is extremely talented, and I think there's another step he can take. And if you can bring him to Florida and get him to take that next step, you're looking at a quarterback that I think can be one of the best quarterbacks in the SEC. Really live arm, good athlete, can get himself out of trouble. I really do think that's important, specifically in this conference. You need a quarterback that can get himself out of trouble and be a playmaker. With the kind of pass rushes that you see every single Saturday in this conference, just NFL defensive linemen across the board every single Saturday, I need a quarterback that can make things happen. Like, fully recognize it ain't going to be perfect for you in the pocket. We need an athlete that can get outside the pocket, make some throws off platform, be a difference maker. CJ Bailey's that guy. There's 2 other interesting names that very much intrigue me. And this is if you're trying to do a little money balling. Hey, maybe we don't want to splash $2 million on a quarterback. What do you go get a guy like Lincoln Kienholz or a guy like Kenny Minchie? They're the same kind of quarterbacks, right? They're both guys that are 2023 class guys. And so they're currently in year 3. They're both behind younger quarterbacks. In Kenny Minchie's case, it's CJ Carr. In Lincoln Kienholz's case, it's Julian Sain, both of which are some of the best quarterbacks in the sport. Both of these 2 guys, in Lincoln Kienholz and Kenny Minchie, were in, and I mean heated, quarterback battles in fall camp, like decisions that weren't made until 2 weeks before the season. What does that tell me? It's a risk because you haven't seen them actually be the quarterback one. If you're kind of reading through the tea leaves, Kenny Minchie pushes CJ Carr to the absolute brink. Kenny Minchie beat out Steve Angeli in spring. And Steve Angeli transferred to Syracuse, and before he went down with the injury, Steve Angeli was damn good for Syracuse. So they're reading through the tea leaves of how that quarterback competition played out for both of these 2 cats. Just because they narrowly missed starting over Julian Sain and CJ Carr respectively does not mean these 2 cats can't play. They're going to be year 4 quarterbacks who've both worked under really, really good offensive minds, Mike Denbrock at Notre Dame and Ryan Day at Ohio State. And you wouldn't have to pay $2 million to them, right? Because they've never been quarterback one. They're just looking for an opportunity to play football and be quarterback one. It's a risk because you don't really know what they are. Just a vibe test. They very well could be good football players. We'll see what Florida decides to do. Again, I think it starts with who is going to be the offensive coordinator. And then you kind of let the offensive coordinator work through what quarterback he wants. And you probably go back and watch the tape of DJ Lagway and you make your evaluation. Can we fix this kid or can we not? Very interesting conversation. A lot of really fun storylines that are going to be playing out over the next couple of days and really weeks and months, right? Appreciate you guys. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. We'll talk to y'all later. Peace.